Okay, welcome everybody. This is Finding the Right Ride, making accommodations work for every learner. I'm Mallory McGraw, our student success specialist here at IDLA, and I'm happy to partner with the wonderful Elizabeth.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad you decided to spend some time with us. I'm Elizabeth Mann. I'm one of the full-time instructors at IDLA. I teach English and speech, and I'm also the dual credit mentor. So we're really glad that you're here. I know it's a lot of information that we're getting today. So we tried to make ways for you to make this meaningful. So hopefully at the end of our presentation, you will have something tangible, a tool that you can use, plus hopefully a few strategies. So you'll create an accommodation survival kit. Mallory's going to put the link to that, and all you have to do is make a copy. Again, we're hoping that this is something that you can add, use, refer to, or it'll give you some things to think about. So we're glad that you're here. So first off, oh, sorry.
Very slow with the link, sorry.
Okay. All right, we'll wait. Remember that good instruction benefits all learners, not just students with accommodations. So to start off with, we wanted to do a little icebreaker. Which park pass best describes your accommodation experience in the online space? So if you could just write the color in the chat. Are you more of a green pass? You're confident supporting accommodations online. A yellow pass, you know the basics, but you still have questions. Red pass, sometimes I feel overwhelmed managing accommodations. Or the wild ride pass. Every semester feels different. So write in the chat where you would kind of rank yourself. Wild ride, I love that. Thanks, awesome. Wild ride to yellow, wild ride. And again, you know, we all know that it changes semester to semester. So thanks for participating in that. We appreciate that. And Peter, yay. All right, thanks a lot. Well, hopefully we'll be able to give you, like I said, some things to think about and then something to take away when we're through at the end.
Different rides, same park. So we're covering accommodations today, which is how changes the access and kind of levels the playing field for students. And it's kind of based on the need that their team at school identified, the support people on their plan, versus differentiation, you know, changing how learning happens and adjusting learning based on your professional knowledge, something you would do for all learners, just because we know that everyone learns differently and everyone has different needs. So you can just stop for a minute. You can use your spreadsheet if you want and think about one support you might already use that just benefits everybody. It's good for all the learners in your class. And you could think about, is it differentiation, accommodation, or, and many, in most cases, probably both. In our presentation, we're focusing mostly on accommodations, and this is kind of the how a student accesses or learns the material. You know, the learning goal stays the same, but it's just a different experience for each individual. And we listed quite a few examples that you've probably seen in your time teaching, but just wanted to point out that while a plan outlines what we must do, what the team is determined, you know, evidence-based that a student needs to be successful, we know that it doesn't really limit what we can do because we're all experienced teachers and people who are learners ourselves. So we can use our own professional knowledge to kind of decide how we can support students. And one big question that I get a lot, and I had this when I started here, is just kind of what's everybody's responsibility? You know, we are a supplement to a school. And so in that way, we all kind of have a different part in the team. So the students registering school, their home district, they really hold all the responsibility for the student plan. We're there to support and act as a supplement and do what we can in our own class, but certainly we're not making those plan decisions. So schools are registering, letting us know when a student has a plan. They're uploading those plans and submitting the plans. and then providing the supports on their end that they've identified and that they should be, while we are reviewing the accommodations, implementing what's reasonable in our class, and then collaborating with those school teams. And just like in all things, working together really is the most efficient way for students. We do have some sort of ride designs to kind of help teachers along the way. If you've taught a class before, you've likely received one of these action requests. Action requests come out when students are batched to your class that have been marked as having a plan. You can see some of the examples, what that kind of looks like on the side of the slide there. It's going to tell you the class that it's for, if you're teaching multiple sections, which student it's for, what type of plan it is, and then a link to the documentation, the date that it was batched out to you, and then the plan upload date. And you're going to review the plan and then just acknowledge that you have access and reviewed the plan. Now, in a perfect system, those all come out at the beginning of the class, but sometimes, we just get information as we receive it, and sometimes plan comes in late, so you'll receive that at random times as those plans come in. And also just know that the plan updated date is when we receive the last plan. So that student might have been in classes before you. We have already had that plan, and it'll just be that date will look older. That doesn't mean that you need to track down a new plan. That just happens to be the date that it came in. But that just action request is just there to help us stay informed and know when students with plans are coming our way. As we switch to Buzz, there are some great features in there that support student accommodations, and one of those is reducing multiple choice distractors. Now, as we all switch to Buzz, we'll probably see this more and more, but you can link, there's a link here to the teacher knowledge base, and I think Elizabeth put it in the chat. Thank you. You'll be able to, when you receive a plan and you review it and see that they have an accommodation for reducing the multiple choice response options, you can check in your gradebook and see if the student has a flag. And if they do, and the flag says that it's already been marked, you're good to go. And if not, you can use the knowledge base article and submit a ticket that will help Buzz automatically reduce the response options to 3. So that's kind of really nice feature that we're going to have in Buzz.
So I'm going to kind of focus a little bit on the instructional part of it. There's 3 sections before the course starts, during the course, and throughout the semester. During course setup, you're reviewing accommodation plans. Again, it's in a perfect world, they would all be there right when, but we know, especially if you have taught for IDLA, you don't have access to your course until a few days before the semester starts. So reviewing those accommodation plans, identifying potential barriers before the course starts is really helpful. During the course, maintaining that communication, applying those supports consistently, and then throughout the semester. It's not a one-time done deal. It's just making sure that you're monitoring the progress, just like you do for all of your students, and then adjusting as needed. Inside of our ride at IDLA, we have several ride operators, and believe it or not, that is another one of your titles. As teachers, you're reviewing the IEPs, 504s, ELPs, you're providing those accommodations in the online classroom. And again, we're all teachers, but it's different in an online space. It just is, the workflow changes, right? And so you just kind of have to decide how you're going to implement that. You're reaching out to mentor teachers or support staff when you have questions, and then you're documenting everything, accommodations in thesis. The principals also are ride operators for this task, and they're doing the same thing. Your principal, your IDLA principal, especially if you're new to IDLA, forming a relationship with them as soon as your course starts is really important. It's so beneficial. Our principals are amazing, and they are so helpful. If they don't know, they will find somebody that can help you. And so those are your roles as a ride operator. So navigating the park, now we're going to get in there. We're going to go to our first stop, and the first stop is knowing your student's plan. We touched on this earlier, reviewing those accommodations early, checking in thesis, those action requests as they come. And then it's really important to remember, when you look at a student's plan in thesis, the highlighted accommodations are a starting point. Those are ones that have been identified to probably be applicable to your class, but it's just the starting point. It's really good practice to read all of those accommodations and decide you're the one teaching the course. You're the one who's familiar with that content. And so you should be like, oh, well, this one would apply too. And so it's really good to keep that in mind. You're not just looking at the highlights only, you're looking at other things in the plan. And again, if the plan is not there, sometimes that happens and you have to keep waiting for the action request, but it's important to have those communications. Reach out to the principal, reach out to the site coordinator, reach out to Mallory, our special populations professional, and she will be able to help you with that. So stop number one, know the student's plan. Stop number two, and hopefully you're ready for stop number two. You're going to be preparing the ride. You're previewing those upcoming units. And again, this happens generally during course setup. If you've taught the class before, this becomes a little easier each time, but as you're going through the course, and this is part of course setup, you're going through the units, you're making sure links work, you're making sure content's there. You should also be kind of thinking about accommodations. Now, if I had a student with this accommodation, what assignments might be challenging for them? And this really helps you prepare. Adding those instructional supports to your teacher tips page. If you want to throw in, I'm an English teacher, so I include a lot of graphic organizers or an outline help. Adding those to the teacher tip page is just going to help prepare your students. And then identifying those assignments where you need adjustments. Planning those supports before your student hit those barriers will really save you time, and it will also help your students be successful. So take a moment and think about what assignments or activities in your course may create a barrier for students. Think about it. All right, we're moving on to stop number 3. Communicate clearly. This is really important, especially in, well, everybody knows this in education, but reaching out proactively during the welcome calls, especially, I know that we don't necessarily have to make welcome calls if we're doing welcome videos, but generally with students in my classes that have accommodations, I'm still making welcome calls because that's the time that I'm having the conversation about, hey, this is what your accommodations are going to look like in my class this semester. Clarifying those expectations and then, discussing them with parents and students. It really just saves a lot of time. And truthfully, most parents are happy to hear from the teacher ahead of time instead of reversing that and they're reaching out to you. So communicating clearly, documenting everything. What is one proactive communication habit that you want to improve? We can always improve. And as we were putting this together, I was thinking about things that I would like to improve. Some examples are welcome calls, check-ins, reminder messages, any kind of documenting supports. So communication is key, especially when you're not face-to-face. It also helps establish those relationships that are so important in our classrooms. All right, stop number 4, keeping our students moving. Really important. As we got everything started, we prepared our courses, and now we need to be monitoring those engagement patterns, looking at, is it working? Is the extra time helping them? Are they still a unit behind? Maybe that's a red flag. Just in Time in the teacher knowledge base last year had sections about accommodations, using those supports to help, if one thing doesn't work, try something else, right? Adjusting when barriers appear. For example, I had a student last semester who had extra time and they were still consistently almost 2 units behind for their accommodation. So reaching out to the site coordinator, I found that they were, between living locations. And so that presented its own challenges. So then we had to move on to looking at other ways we could help them. So thinking about one more support that you already use that could benefit more of your learners. So keeping your students moving forward is a really important step. Okay, so we wanted to touch on some of our fast pass strategies. The top requested accommodations at IDLA, these are things that most of us see frequently in our classes, frequent use of praise, positive reinforcement, alternate responses, chunking information, breaking down tasks, extra time, simplified directions. The longer, and again, even if in the face-to-face classroom, you just become more proficient at the ones you see more often, doesn't mean that we're still not learning new tricks, because we're constantly learning and growing. But we wanted to just touch base on some of these top accommodations. So first up is frequent use of praise, positive reinforcement. I will admit this one's a little more challenging in the online space. When you're face to face with your students, it's a lot easier. You know, we're offering that positive feedback more often, even for a small success. In the face-to-face classroom, it's easier because they're there with you. I can say, hey, great job. Online, Google Voice Message has been great for that. Reaching out the students and saying, hey, you completed this unit, good job, you're on track. That really can go a long ways. In your individualized student feedback that you're leaving on assignments, it's that specific great job with these descriptive language, nice way to come up with a different solution to this problem. It really can make a difference for students that have this, probably all students, but especially students that have this on their accommodation. So take a moment. What's a specific phrase or type of positive feedback that you could use more intentionally in your online classroom? Maybe add that to your toolkit section. All right, we're gonna go to the next one, alternate responses. Basically, an alternate response is they're basically showing what they know in a different way. And I included these definitions because it's really important to know what the definition is for these terms, because sometimes you'll, again, we're dealing with humans and we don't all have the same experiences. So basically the content is the same, but the format is different. It's really important to think about that. Now, again, we listed some examples. Instead of having a free write, they're using a video response. Really quick, can you show me by your emoji, give me a thumbs up if you've ever used any of these in any of your classes. How many of you guys have used a video response instead of a written response or an oral response? Yeah, awesome, thanks. This is really, and again, sometimes, it can just be have them make a quick video, have them. I've also met with students because we do a quick Google Meet and then they explain it to me and, we go on from there. What's one assignment that students could complete in a different format while still showing mastery? So again, we have some examples here. These are really important to think about. Again, these are specific to your content. They still need to help you meet the objectives of your content in order to, Mallory, did you want to throw in something about that or?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, I think it's
Okay.
hard to say, like, do this when in this situation, because we all teach different classes and it shouldn't,
Right.
It should still be appropriate for your class. And
Yeah, it's like interpretive dance instead of writing a research paper probably wouldn't match the objectives for dual credit. Might be more entertaining, but it probably for dual credit English. So, okay. So let's go on to chunking information, breaking down tasks. This one is one that I feel like I see a lot. You're basically taking that larger project or assignment and breaking it into smaller, more manageable pieces. I think most of us can relate to the student who just can't get started. They just can't, they don't know where to begin. And this is really where those AI online tools and supports that we have. I use Magic School AI a lot for this one, and it will just create those scaffolds. It will basically, put it into steps, or it helps them get started. And again, if you can't relate to that, but it makes a lot of sense to me because sometimes it just seems really overwhelming. And so instead of having them write a 10-page research paper, you might have them complete a few pages, or I usually have them do their introduction and their thesis, and then we kind of go from there. So think about that. What's one assignment or project from one of your classes that you've taught or you're going to teach that students often feel overwhelmed by? How could you break it into smaller steps? I guarantee you this is one that you will be using a lot. So it's really important to kind of think about that ahead of time. And then extra time. Extra time is a frequent flyer, as I like to call it. Basically, because our programs are online, flexibility is really built into how we run our classes. Extra time to complete assignments, finish work, create presentations. It's really important. Extra time is one of the most common accommodations that we will see, and I want to speak to this specifically. When I reach out to students and parents, I always address this in my conversations with them and how it will apply in our class. Extra time doesn't mean they have until the whole end of semester to finish all their assignments. That is not necessarily what extra time is, because first of all, that really isn't help with student success. It also doesn't really help with their learning. If they're working on stuff from unit 1, where we're on unit 7, our content is pretty chronological. And so allowing them to get that far behind is really not beneficial to them. So it's definitely something you want to address and document. When I'm talking to parents, I will usually say, and students, according to your accommodations, I see that you have extra time, 2 to 3 days. This is what it will look like in our course. And then document that. And then also follow up on that, because again, it's not helping them if there's no parameters. Really also pay attention to the end of course dates. This can kind of catch up with you at the end. If you're letting them finish multiple units, it's not really great. So thank you, Steve. I see that you had sentence starters. Those are really, really, really important to help students get started. Thank you for sharing that. And then next we have simplified directions. Again, it's removing barriers. It's not removing requirements. It just helps them, understand how to demonstrate their knowledge. If we have dense instructions, large paragraphs, and again, it doesn't seem like a lot to us because it's a paragraph and we're educators and we can read a paragraph, but if you spend any time in the classroom, you know that this can be challenging. It just helps them process those challenges before they get lost or they don't start. And so again, clarity, formatting, those direct action verbs. If I have to write a lot of simplified directions, I always go back to my informational writing. Step 1, do this. Step 2, right? And so you're really helping them break down that information. Sometimes when students see a large paragraph, they kind of give up before they start. Not always, but sometimes. So take a moment, think of a recent assignment, either from the previous semester or the current semester, if you're teaching summer classes. How could you simplify the directions? And again, numbered steps, bold action verbs, clear formatting. Again, just taking that paragraph and breaking it into smaller, really kind of fools the eye into making it more navigating. So. And then keeping the line moving. It's really important to organize your student accommodations. We've given you a data tracker, which if that works for you, please use it. You need to find somewhere that you're going to organize your student accommodation information. And then tracking supports. Everything needs to be documented in the thesis. As you know, those notes, spoke to parent, this is what we said, right? Sometimes I feel like a court reporter as I'm like documenting stuff, like I'm on, student said this and I said that. Any kind of communication templates. Again, this is where those online, we have lots of resources that help with our workflow, and they are really beneficial. Google Calendar reminders. I'm not a huge calendar person, but I have become one the past couple of years because it really helps me every Friday to have something on there. Find something that works for you. Remember that consistency is more important than perfection, but it's really important to have it somewhere. Even if you still write it down by hand in a notebook, that's fine too. No judgment.
And just to kind of continue on that, part of the professional responsibilities is to leave tracks behind, document the really important things in the SIS. And we do this because, one, it just kind of creates continuity for the other classes that the student might be in, your principal to be able to identify, me if a school calls to be able to look in and know, just kind of supports that collaboration. And there is a teacher knowledge base about documenting in the SIS. So if you need help with that, you can always reach out. When the ride breaks down, which it sometimes does, if there is no plan in the SIS, which sometimes happen, and you're calling and reaching out and you're not having any luck, pick up the phone or email or send a message to me and I can help track that down. We do have a system in place to kind of support that, but certainly we want you to have that when you need it. If you're getting requests for heavy curricular modifications, reach out. There are content specialists and your lead teacher, me, I guess mentor teacher, we could all help. We're not making individualized classes for each student, and schools are responsible to kind of select the class of best fit for their student because they know the student best, but we're all teaching classes and we all know that at the end of the day, that doesn't always happen. So should you get in a situation where you feel like, oh, they're requesting some significant content changes, I'm going to need to circle in other people. And sometimes, we only know that students are on plans when the school marks it at registration, but schools are busy places. And so the people marking students might not always be the people who are aware they're on plan. And so if you come across a situation where you think, okay, I think I might be missing information, just reach out and I'm happy to call and have that conversation and do a little digging and support that. And I forgot to put in the chat, but I'll put it in now, just how you can, oh, you did, Elizabeth, thank you.
I did.
Yeah, what is a strategy you will implement before the first month of summer ends?
Yeah, we wanted you to just respond on this Padlet as we're wrapping up our last few slides, because it's really good. Even if you're teaching summer, hopefully you're not teaching a full load. And so having that time, I think teachers are naturally reflective. And we're spending this time thinking about, our next year, our next classes. So, add one strategy, and it could be one that we've given you or one that just popped into your head that you're going to implement. Again, I started using Google Calendar reminders for this last school year, and it really helped me. Not just, but like for my workflow tasks. And so if you could drop one in there as we're wrapping up, that would just help us kind of continue the conversation. And according to our keynote speaker, Padlet is a really good way to have students interact with each other. So.
And then we just want you to know that you are not alone, in your class. The school has important contacts that you should look at. When you're viewing the student hub, you can see the site coordinator. The site coordinator is generally the person registering for classes. They're kind of the first point of contact for enrollment questions, communication, anything like that. And then the case manager is also listed, and that's the person that generally writes the plan or is implementing the plan at school. And so they're going to be a really good contact if you have questions about the plan itself. But also, I know that many of you teach during the day, and that's kind of conflicting with the hours that those people are at school working. So I'm also always here to help make contact during the day. And then you have a whole team of people here at IDLA to help you. You have me, your student success specialist. You have your mentor teachers who are really the expert in that area, can help you get ideas for your classroom. They can talk to you about what they're using in their class. They are teaching classes and are in it with you and know that. You have the curriculum leads. These are the people who are writing the classes and can help you know what content, if you're trying to reduce a couple of things, is okay to take out and what isn't. And any questions about the curriculum as you're previewing units, they are a great resource. Like Aaron said, tech support, they're awesome and always there. We have Cass and Callie doing coaching, and they are so helpful. I feel like they're my go-to when I'm looking for something in the knowledge base or I'm struggling with anything, they are there. And then we have the regional support team. They're out in schools, they're making contact, they're tracking down plans. We are all here to help.
Well, and I wanted to point out about just the curriculum leads. Sometimes they have resources that have already been created. So an example is I had a student in one of my English classes who needed a lot of stuff, reduced, and reaching out to the English lead. They had just done that the previous semester for another student. And so saving me time from going through and identifying, it really helped. And again, I've never had anybody say, no, I can't help you. It's more of a, well, I'm pretty sure I can do this, but I also know that so and so and so and so and so, right? So it's really important, especially when you're new, to reach out. Sometimes it's hard to know, who do I contact? And so contact someone and they'll point you in the right direction.
And if you all have any questions for us, we've got some time left and can take those.
The only question I have is, what does OFC mean in the chat? Okay, thanks, Steve. I'm showing my age here because I'm not hip to that.
Hey, Brent. I think one of the main ways to get that done is if it's a multiple choice, you're going to want to go in, you can watch that knowledge base we linked and put in the ticket if it hasn't already been done to just have that setting turned on and buzz. That'll automatically reduce the multiple choice. That gets it down to 3. But I'm assuming also then, assignments, they're going to be asking about those in tests. And probably what I would do is reach out to the content lead, because you probably could look at an assignment or assignment and know, okay, there's 2 or 3 repeating this. They could do this and that. But the content lead's going to tell you, okay, what is essential, which assignments maybe are measured elsewhere, and could help you know what could be reduced there. And you could put in a ticket to the support, and that will get sent to your content lead. Okay, 0 of 1 in the thesis, the SIS, and no accommodations listed. I would reach out to the site coordinator, because they're most often the person registering the student, and they're the person listing the case manager. And so they maybe don't always do that correctly, but they're going to know and be on that at their school. So that would be my first point of contact. But if you don't have any luck there, you can send me a note and I can call. Be honest, summer is a little tricky because sometimes they register students on their way out the door for summer, and then we send out those automated upload your plan here, and it takes a bit to find somebody. So that's can be tricky, but we're here for that. And yeah, John, the buzz feature is really nice. And it'll be really nice because if we turn it on for this class, any classes that they take in the future, they will have that already set up.
Oh, nice. Great questions. All right. Well, if there isn't any other questions, we'll give you a little bit of time to go walk around the block. But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your summer conference, and thanks for stopping by. Remember, this presentation is available for you, and it will also be archived, and you'll be able to go back to it. So thank you for stopping by. It was great to have you.
Thank you all.